Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new segment. This will be a working introduction. This will be my first interview with artist Hana Ward, who is represented by Ochi Gallery in LA. Um, so thank you for agreeing to do this. My first question for you is, where did your art practice begin? What thoughts and experiences led you to becoming an artist?
Well, my art practice really began like as a 3-year-old on the floor, finger painting, like most people. But I think I just kept doing it. I remember in middle school, my dad letting me get like this plain piece of IKEA furniture to paint because I wanted to paint my characters on it. And I always took art classes in school and throughout college. So yeah, it was something that I just kind of kept doing, I'd say. But I really got serious about it a couple years after I graduated from college. I studied education, and I was working in Oakland at a middle school there, and I was doing a teaching fellowship. And when that ended, I I was reflecting on like my art practice and sort of how distant I'd become. I read a book called Women Who Run with the Wolves, and it's about like women reconnecting with their creative spirit, and I like made a commitment, I made a recommitment to my art practice then. So yeah,
I like that.
that's where
Okay.
it started.
Yeah. I feel like there's always an early point for when people enter art.
Hmm.
It's like within their youth, when they're children. That's the most play that we usually experience
Yeah,
is as
yeah.
children. At least sometimes that's what's only allowed for us when we're children that we
Hmm.
experience play. But
Yeah.
obviously, play can be experienced at any point of our lives.
Yeah, and both my parents are artists. They both had sort of like working jobs. My mom's a graphic designer, and my dad worked at UCLA running the news magazines. But he used to paint at home when I was little, and he used to come and paint with me in the mornings in kindergarten. And my mom used to paint at home too. So yeah, when I was young, that was they were painting around me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is perfect.
Mhm.
Because I also have a parent, not my mom, but my dad, who
Uh-huh.
is also a creative. He can make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
But also just encouraging that creativity for me as well, buying me art supplies and things of that nature. So it's always nice when your parents
Yes.
engage in art and they engage with it with you.
Yes.
I love that. So my next question is, how do you define your relationship with art?
My relationship with art.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I see it as a very personal thing, similar to how I see religion or spirituality, I'd say. There's some quote, I forgot who it is, but it's like, what is it like? God enters through a private door, it's something like that. I don't even know who said it. I've heard it referenced a few times, but I kind of see it that, or I have similar feelings about it. For me, it's a tool to work through ideas, to reflect on myself and my ancestry, um, and it's really like a sacred space, I would say too. And so that's why it feels kind of like similar to spirituality. Um, yeah, I really like looking at other artists' work. Like there's certain painters that I love, and there's certain shows that I'll see, and I'll be really inspired to paint. So it is important for me to see others'
Mm-hmm.
works, but I also know that I don't really have very strong opinions about like good art or bad art or something like that. I really think there's something for everyone, and I see it as like people are pulling on making different subtle references to things. There's certain feelings to things, and it just sort of depends on your own upbringing and what your reference points are. And
Yeah.
so I just, yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, really, art should be for everybody. I know it's an argument that art is inherently political, which I think to an extent is true or can be true just based off of art history in general and what art was used for based on historical events that were happening.
Yeah.
But art is definitely for everybody, and there can
Mm-hmm.
be a multitude of entry points that are not, reflecting what's happening in real life. Because sometimes escapism is needed to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Imagination, even just thinking of Afrofuturism, for example, just imagining what can be for Black people globally.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, creating new images too. Yeah.
yeah. Yep. All right. So my next question is, what are you inspired by, and how do you weave those themes into your practice?
Um, okay, well, I'm definitely inspired by color. I feel like that's usually what will really get me going on a painting, either get it started or sort of be the like energizing force to see the painting through, is like working through the colors and the color balance. And I'm also very inspired by liberation and like liberatory stories. Um, and I'm also very interested in the mind and sort of like the mechanics of thought and energy and imagination. And um, it's, a lot of my interests lately actually have led me to um, read a lot about sort of like manifestation stuff, or what today is like people talk about as manifestation. But the reason why it's so interesting to me is a lot of that text or related text thinks deeply about thought and the the sort of like the realm of thing, this the spirit side of things before they're in a physical, right, the physical manifestation of it. They're thinking about what is the energy that brings something into the physical, and that's really fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just like a combination of those things. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think manifestation, that's, oh man, it's very needed. I think even in relation to what's happening now in our everyday lives, where now it feels to a certain extent that everything is falling apart, at least within the United States.
Yeah.
Um, and then also, especially for um, the Black community, but also even just Black and Brown communities in general,
Yeah.
still fighting for rights that we shouldn't have to fight for still,
Yeah.
and still having to, you know, manifest the futures and, I mean, just the present day that we want
Mm-hmm.
almost every day, it
Yeah.
seems. So I can get behind
Yeah.
manifestation and work. I can get behind that. um, so yeah, my next question: do you explore the themes within your work through painting and ceramics differently?
Um, yes, I think so. I mean, well, I've made a lot more painting pieces, so that process is a little bit more practiced. And I really can see the connection through my paintings, through what I'm reading and researching, and the subjects that I'm working with on the canvas. For ceramics, it feels, maybe because it's so tactile, it's like I'm not even thinking, like I'm just making.
Right.
At least, when you're sketching, you're painting, you're a little bit more like, it's more apparent, or you have to make more decisions maybe about what you're drawing. Whereas with the ceramic, it feels very like meditative, kind of like, and I've also been doing somewhat simple forms. I mean, they're all just like busts. So it's like, okay, I know I'm making a person, but I'm really just forming them. It's just whatever it becomes is what it becomes. I'm
Right.
not really thinking too much about it. And so there's less information there, I feel like, than the paintings have, at least right now. But I have, but it's similar. It's just like a little bit more subconscious, I'd say, the ceramics.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So would you expand further into ceramics? How would you go any bigger? Do you plan to experiment with going
I
big?
I would love to go bigger. I made a floor lamp for the first time recently.
Ooh.
That was the biggest thing I made. Yeah, that's in a show at the California African American Museum right now. But yeah, I'd love to go bigger. Yeah, it's just a whole nother beast.
Oh yeah, I can. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I can
Mhm.
imagine.
Yeah, but I saw there's some of Simone Leigh's work at CAM right now also in LA, and I saw that and it's like really inspiring to see. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a different level of taking up space
Mm,
in comparison with a painting. You know, if you go large size in canvas, take up the wall, you can't really ignore it when you go into a room. And then with ceramics, or at least just sculpture in general, you
yeah,
know, depending on how big or small, I think the tactile feeling really plays into how the viewer sees it and feels it. But just like being able to physically take up space,
definitely.
like
Yeah,
right in front of you, it's a different
yeah,
experience.
that's a really good point. Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna remember that
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
next show.
In reference to Simone Lee, yeah,
Yeah.
stick with it that way.
Mhm.
Okay, so next question would be, what synergies did you identify between yourself and University of Maryland's Artist in Residence program with their 1856 project? And what do you intend to explore during your time there that the general public can experience later on?
Yeah. So the artist in residency, I'm supposed to go there and then be inspired there to figure out what I would do. But I do have some ideas. I've only briefly looked into their project, but I'm excited to learn a lot more when I go there. But I'm hoping that I can do something related to Harriet Tubman, honestly,
Yeah.
which is funny because years ago I definitely was part of the like we need new Black stories. We just keep telling the same story. We have the same. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there's so many stories. Why don't you know? And then I learned about George Washington Carver, his actual contributions and legacy beyond the peanut, and I was like, oh my God, this man is amazing, and this is like magical,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started thinking about Harriet Tubman more deeply, and I'm like, wait a second, this is so magical, I'm like, and so it's just funny because here I am like revisiting these like prominent figures, but in a different way, I think, and in a way that it's exciting for me, and so I'm actually I came across this woman's work who was really exciting to find because I feel like a lot of things that she's writing is like exactly what I was thinking about. She's like a writer, so it was like what she just was able to put it somewhere so much clearly. But she has a class called Decolonizing Manifestation, and she focuses on Harriet Tubman specifically as a prime example of like a what does she call it? She as like the quantum mechanics of freedom
Okay.
and exhibiting this. Yeah. So I I'm really interested in that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like looking through history, specifically Black history, and like crossing it with like quantum physics, manifestation, thought like, okay, how are these people actually demonstrating or using some of these principles, and how can that be helpful for us today? And so because going to Maryland, I was thinking like, okay, I wanted to think more deeply about Harriet Tubman. I also read another book about her recently that's called The Spirit of Harriet Tubman. That was really fascinating book.
Mm.
It's somewhat like channeled. This woman who's like very spiritual was basically like not confronted with the spirit of Harriet Tubman, but like became like in conversation with,
Mm.
and was sort of got this message to like write this book and tell this other side of her story. and there's a chapter in there called The Inner Underground. And it basically, through the voice of Harriet Tubman, sort of says, like, yes, I was there doing this like physical underground thing, but there's like a whole inner underground of leading people to a mental freedom. And I'm really interested in that. So I think I'm going to try to go there. I don't know if like
Yeah.
the stuff is ready, you know, for me to like put together
Yeah.
and explain but I'm hoping that the person, Candice Meza is her name, who has the decolonizing manifestation, who's focusing on that similar thing. I'm hoping that her work can kind of help me get there.
Yeah, that sounds so interesting. Oh my gosh. No, that's very exciting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope that does kind of like manifest itself, and
Yeah.
then eventually General Public can see it in some form of a
Yeah.
exhibition, me being one of them because I live in Baltimore.
Oh,
so
yes.
that'd be really cool. That'd be perfect. And there's like a lot of racial history in Maryland. I mean, like even just I don't know if it's Baltimore, Maryland. That's still like the birthplace of redlining.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things to unpack
Yeah.
with Maryland as a state, and even just of course Harriet Tubman. Um, what am I thinking of? I'm blanking, so I'm just gonna move. I'm gonna move forward.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Frederick Douglass.
Oh.
I think when I read his autobiography during one of my American literature classes, it was very surreal to hear him mention Fells Point. And obviously, Fells Point is still around. That's where he did his caulking work when he was younger.
Wow.
And I think it just made me feel very weird about physically being there, given the history of what Maryland has gone through, Baltimore specifically, in terms of, slaves, enslaved people.
Yeah.
So I think being able to experience Baltimore from his perspective it changed me a little bit, and just made me have a more, I guess, like also more self-aware feeling towards Baltimore, and just kind of almost being a little bit more cautious in a way.
Yeah.
In terms of that history. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Lots to unpack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially every day if you live there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I'm like, I don't know how long I'm going to be there for exactly. But I'm like, I think I need some more time there. Yeah.
Oh man. So my last question that I have for you is, what do you hope people take away from your imagery?
I hope people feel inspired. Yeah, I think that's basically it. Inspired, I think maybe empowered even. Yeah, I guess there's a lot that I could hope for, but I don't know if I want to ask the art to do that much for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, inspired, empowered. Yeah.
Okay. You keep it simple. That's all right.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, hey, it's more pointed that way. So
yeah,
as long as you know, then you know.
yeah.
But yeah, that is all that I have for you.
Okay,
Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.